Number 1. A strong, uncompromising humanity that refuses to be stepped on. The audience saved the exact moment at 45 minutes and 21 seconds when the line, "We won't give away our most advanced weapons," is delivered. They absolutely love it when humanity sets hard boundaries. For instance, the user, Audiobook, furiously rejects the idea of sharing weapons with aliens who previously threatened Earth. This audience is human nationalist. They want to see humanity protect itself, not act naively. Another user, Radva666, noted that they love strength combined with discipline, quoting, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." Number 2. Explicit military power details. User, Elaine Sandman 9874, literally counts the ships, celebrating the 12 Titan warships and cheering that humanity would never be defenseless again. They crave technical specifications, numbers, and specific ship names. Number 3. Names matter immensely. User, Third Legolas 7415, commented that a ship should have been named the Damocles, which gathered multiple likes. Meanwhile, user, Gary Raub, expressed frustration because some stories failed to change generic names. The key insight here is that names for ships, weapons, and military operations carry massive emotional weight. Mythological names like Damocles excite the audience. Number 4. Emotional reward and a satisfying conclusion. User, Daniel Kubert, expressed gratitude for a great story where the devourers did not even show up. The audience craves resolved threats and rewarding endings. What to avoid to prevent audience drop-off? A significant drop-off was detected at certain minutes in previous videos. This usually happens during a sudden dip in pacing. To prevent this, we must completely avoid plots where humanity acts naive or weak, such as sharing advanced weaponry with former enemies. We must never betray the core power fantasy. 5 script concepts based on audience patterns. Concept number 1. The Damocles. The ship nobody was supposed to wake up. This directly addresses the top comment. It features a forbidden Titan-class warship with a mythological name, sealed away by humanity because it is simply too dangerous. When alien forces pressure them, humanity refuses, until they are left with no choice. The opening hook is, "We call it Damocles, because it hangs over the head of anyone who dares look at Earth twice." Concept number 2. We do not share our weapons. The day the galaxy demanded, and humanity said no. This concept expands the exact moment saved by the audience into a full narrative. A galactic council demands humanity surrender its military tech in the name of peace. The entire plot revolves around the refusal and its escalating consequences, speaking directly to viewers who despise naive diplomacy. Concept number 3. Junior member. The sanctions that created a monster. Inspired by user comments regarding unfair sanctions, a massive federation treats humanity as a low-level junior member, restricting their technology beyond the moon and imposing heavy penalties. This proves to be a fatal mistake. Humanity builds a military apparatus in complete secrecy, fulfilling the ultimate fantasy of being underestimated and making the enemy pay for it. Concept number 4. The Devourers did arrive. Since viewers celebrated the absence of the Devourers in the first video, this sequel delivers the opposite. The cosmic threat everyone feared finally arrives, forcing the 12 Titan warships and a newly formed alien alliance to stand together. This delivers heavily on the promise of an accumulated threat. Concept number 5. Family. When the strongest ally is scarier than the enemy. This concept explores the discomfort when an alien species aggressively tries to ally with humanity to become family, creating a tense atmosphere of wondering whether it is a genuine friendship or a calculated trap. The complete audio script, Junior MEMBR Act 1, The Humiliation. Deep, confidential tone. Like someone revealing a forbidden secret. Inside the central archive of the Conclave, there is a document that no species wants to read out loud. It is completely sealed. Classified under a name they chose themselves, during a moment of arrogance they would regret forever. Error of calculation number 1. It does not speak of a lost war. It does not speak of a destroyed fleet, or a world turned to ashes. It speaks of a signature. The signature with which 14 ancient empires decided that humanity was too small to matter, and too wild to be invited. They placed a label on this newly arrived species. A polite, condescending, almost tender word. They called us, junior member. And they laughed. Pausa. This is the story of why they stopped laughing. The pacing opens up. Broader and more narrative. The galactic conclave was 14 million years old. 14 species sat in its central chamber. The Velthari, architects of empires. The Sumar, who traded entire star systems like loose change. The Olith, so ancient they had witnessed the death of 3 generations of stars. They called themselves the Eternals. And for them, the universe operated under a single, absolute rule: age is power. The older your empire, the louder your voice. That is why, when a new species crossed the threshold of the chamber for the very first time, a species that had barely touched its own moon 80 years prior, a species that still buried its dead, a species that still dreamed, the conclave felt no threat. They felt tenderness. The exact kind of tenderness you feel for a puppy that growls, fully believing it is a wolf. Humanity was admitted that day. But not as an equal. Cold, sharp pause. They were admitted as a junior member. On probation. They could not vote. They could not speak without explicit permission. And the clause they enjoyed writing the most, the one they read out loud amidst suppressed laughter, was this: any technology that allows the human species to travel beyond its own moon will be restricted, supervised, and if necessary, completely cut off. They chained humanity to its own backyard. And in case the cage was not enough, they attached a leash: mandatory monthly meetings. Humanity had to show up, sit in the lowest seat of the grand hall, and listen. Missing a single meeting would bring severe consequences. A more intimate tone introduces the human perspective. Out of all the humans they could have sent, leadership chose a single woman to sit in that chair. Her name was Mara Okonkwo. She was not a warrior. She was not a scientist. She was something far more dangerous. She was a woman who knew how to listen. Mara entered that immense hall, where the ceilings vanished into total darkness and the columns were older than her entire species, and she did not tremble. She did not lower her gaze. She walked straight to the lowest seat, the seat of the junior, and sat down with the absolute calm of someone who has all the time in the world. The Eternals interpreted this as submission. That was their second miscalculation of the day. The tone shifts to heavy tension as the antagonist enters. It was then that Archon Veldar spoke. The oldest. The tallest. The one with so many centuries behind him that his voice sounded like heavy stones grinding against each other. He leaned down toward Mara. Close enough so that only she could feel the coldness of his words. Listen to me carefully, creature, he said. You will be a shadow of what you might, perhaps, become one day if you behave. All technology allowing you to go beyond your tiny moon will be severed. And if you miss a single one of our mandatory meetings, there will be sanctions. The entire hall waited. They waited for tears. For protests. For pleas. They waited for the puppy to whimper. The twist. The first crack in the calm. But Mara Okonkwo did not whimper. Mara smiled. It was a tiny, almost imperceptible smile. The kind of smile that never belongs to someone who has just been defeated. And with a calm, clear, almost grateful voice, she replied. Of course, Archon. She bowed her head slightly. We will not go beyond our moon. Veldar stood tall, completely satisfied. The Eternals nodded among themselves. The puppy had understood its place. Long pause. Lower the voice significantly. But you see, there was something that none of the 14 empires noticed that afternoon. Something in the exact way she chose those words. Mara Okonkwo was lying. She was lying straight to the face of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. And not a single one of them, in their 14 million years of wisdom, was capable of noticing it. Silence. Deep beat. Not yet. Act 2, the shadow work. The narrative shifts to a steady, calculated pace. The sanctions arrived quickly. Humanity deliberately missed the very next mandatory meeting. Then, they missed the one after that. The conclave reacted with bureaucratic coldness. They cut off trade routes. They isolated Earth completely. They truly believed they were suffocating a rebellious child. But the isolation was exactly what Mara Okonkwo had planned. Without the constant surveillance of conclave inspectors, humanity turned its eyes toward the dark. The decree stated they could not build technology beyond their moon. It said nothing about building on the moon itself. Deep within the gray dust and inside subterranean lunar lava tubes, the real work began. For 7 years, the automated factories ran 24 hours a day, completely hidden from galactic sensors. The audience wanted military specifications, and humanity delivered. They forged the hull of the first dreadnought using high-density titanium carbide alloys, reinforced with localized kinetic shielding. And then came the names. Names with historical weight. The first fleet was not registered under a serial number. It was given a title. The Nemesis class. And the flagship, a massive 3-kilometer vessel capable of cracking planetary crusts, was christened with a name that whispered of inevitable retribution, the Damocles. A single conclave inspector almost discovered the shipyards during a routine sector sweep. The tension in the high command was absolute. Human stealth frigates intercepted the probe, looping its telemetry data in real time to show nothing but empty space. The secret held. By year 9, the conclave grew tired of humanity's total silence. They issued a final ultimatum, summoning the human delegation to a mandatory assembly. The agenda was simple: the formal expulsion and subsequent orbital blockade of Earth. Mara Okonkwo accepted the invitation. Her message back to the High Archon was brief: I will attend. And I will bring the rest of the family with me. The council thought it was a plea for mercy. Act 3, the collection. The tone becomes grand, epic, and final. The grand chamber was filled to maximum capacity. 14 empires sat in high tiers of stone, looking down at the center floor. Mara Okonkwo walked in completely alone. No guards, no armor, no weapons. She wore the same simple attire as she did nearly a decade ago. Archon Veldar looked down from his high throne, his voice echoing through the amplification arrays. You have broken every treaty, human. You have ignored our laws, skipped our assemblies, and treated the generosity of the Eternals with contempt. Stand before us and surrender your orbital assets, or face complete erasure. The chamber fell into a deathly silence. Mara stood in the center of the floor, looking up at the high tiers. She did not look like a junior member anymore. She looked like a judge. She spoke into the central microphone, her voice carrying an icy calm that shook the room. We won't give away our weapons, Archon. Veldar bared his teeth, a gesture of impending violence. And what makes you think you have a choice? Mara looked him dead in the eye. Because we do not share our weapons. We present them. At that exact second, the massive holographic display in the center of the chamber flickered to life. It did not show Earth. It showed the homeworlds of the 14 empires. Above the skies of every single capital planet in the conclave, the clouds parted. 12 Titan warships, led by the shadow of the Damocles, materialized out of slip space simultaneously. They did not broadcast threats. They did not charge weapons. They simply sat there, massive blocks of black steel completely eclipsing the alien suns. It was not an invasion. It was a revelation. The grand chamber erupted into absolute chaos. Delegates screamed, military advisors scrambled, and Veldar froze on his throne, his face turning pale. Mara Okonkwo turned around, preparing to leave the floor. She paused, looking back at the High Council one last time. From this day forward, she said, the rules change. You are the junior members now. The monthly meetings are mandatory. And I strongly advise you not to miss a single one. The final scene returns to a quiet, narrative tone. In the aftermath of that day, a minor alien species, one that had always been pushed aside and treated as weak by the Eternals, approached the human delegation. Not out of terror, but out of profound respect. They asked to stand with Earth. They asked to become family. The foundation for a new era was laid. They still call that file inside the archive the error of calculation number 1. But down on Earth, we call it the day we stopped asking for permission. Fade to silence. Conspiratorial tone. Like someone finally revealing the secret behind a magic trick. To understand the lie of Mara Okonkwo, you have to understand one fundamental thing about the Eternals. They listened to words. But they had completely forgotten how to listen to what words hide. When Mara said, "We will not go beyond our moon," the entire conclave understood it as a total surrender. What she actually delivered was a promise. Because there is an infinity of places in a solar system that are not beyond the moon. They are between worlds. In the freezing darkness between planetary orbits. In the massive belts of rock and ice that nobody watches, because nobody believes they are worth anything. Humanity had never promised to stay still. They had promised to hide in plain sight. The pacing accelerates. The punishment arrives. The sanctions came swiftly, exactly as Archon Veldar had threatened. Because humanity began to miss the mandatory meetings. One. Then another. Then 3 in a row. The lowest seat in the Grand Hall, the seat of the junior, began to sit empty meeting after meeting. And the conclave reacted exactly how every ancient power reacts when ignored, with fury disguised as order. They cut off all trade routes toward Earth. They blocked access to their galactic markets. They isolated the entire solar system, surrounded it with silence, and sat back to wait. They waited to hear humanity suffocate. They waited for the pleas. The small species, cornered, without trade, and completely alone. Lower the voice significantly. What the Eternals never asked themselves was why humanity smiled every single time a new sanction arrived. A tone of controlled pride and revelation. Because the isolation was not a punishment. It was exactly what humanity had chosen from the very beginning. Every single meeting they missed on purpose. Every sanction they received, they wanted it. Because an isolated species is a species that nobody watches. And a species that nobody watches can build whatever it wants. While the Eternals believed they were closing a cage, they had actually given humanity the only thing it ever truly needed. Privacy. Military catalog tone, hard and hit-driven. The audience craves specifications. Deep within the asteroid belt, far from the moon but well within the strict letter of the law, humanity ignited its shipyards. Not 1. Not 10. 406. They hollowed out the asteroids from the inside, turning them into massive manufacturing factories, completely invisible to galactic scans, and as cold as the dead rock surrounding them. From the outside, worthless debris. From the inside, the cradles of a terrifying fleet. And they began to build warships. Not exploration vessels. Not cargo transports. Not the timid ships of a junior species. They built dreadnoughts. Hulls measuring 90 kilometers from bow to stern. Layered armor designed not just to survive a kinetic strike, but to make the enemy wonder if the ship even noticed the impact. And when the first one was completed, floating in complete silence in the deep dark, waiting, humanity did what it does best. They gave it a name. Read with massive weight. This is the emotional anchor. Because for humanity, a weapon without a name is just metal. A weapon with a name is a promise. The very first one was named the Damocles. Named after the sword of the ancient legend, the blade that hangs by a single hair over the head of the powerful, to remind them that their throne was never as secure as they believed. The entire class of dreadnoughts was baptized as the Nemesis class. Named after the goddess who does not punish the crime, but punishes the arrogance. And to the complete operation, to the secret plan of an entire species building in the shadows, they gave the most cruel, most ironic name of all. They called it Operation Prodigal Son. The son who left. The son everyone thought was broken. The son who would return home. Only to discover who the true family was. Rise the energy. Suspense scene. But keeping a secret the size of an armada is incredibly difficult. And they almost, did not make it. In the cycle 42 of the isolation, a foreign vessel drifted far off its trade route. The Sumar, the great merchants, were suspicious. How was humanity surviving without any trade? How did they remain completely silent, without pleas, without a collapse? A galactic inspector entered the asteroid belt. She advanced through the dead rock, scanning, searching. She passed within 14 kilometers of a 90-kilometer-long dreadnought, completely hidden inside a hollow asteroid. 4,000 humans held their breath inside that hull, their fingers resting over the firing controls, waiting for a single command. The inspector's scanner swept across the surface. Rock. Ice. Worthless metals. Debris. Beat. The inspector turned her vessel and left. Because she found exactly what the Conclave expected to find. Nothing. A small, defeated species, hiding in a remote corner of the galaxy. They never knew how close they came. They never knew that for 14 seconds, the most dangerous weapon ever constructed had them in its crosshairs, and chose to wait. Because the time had not yet come. The final summons. The day arrived. The Conclave gathered to hear her. To expel her. To erase the failed experiment of the insubordinate junior member, once and for all. They sent the final directive to Mara Okonkwo. Present yourself before the Conclave. Alone. To receive the ultimate judgment of the Eternals. And Mara accepted. She responded with a single line. A line that the Eternals read as total obedience, but was, in reality, the closest thing to a declaration of war humanity had ever written. Long pause. I will go, Mara Okonkwo said. And I will bring the whole family with me. Silence. Dropped the voice to a near whisper. 14 empires believed she was talking about diplomats. She was not talking about diplomats. Act 3, the collection. Solemn, ceremonial tone. The calm before the storm. Mara Okonkwo entered the grand hall of the Conclave for the very last time. Alone. Unarmed. Walking with the exact same calm pace as that first afternoon, when 14 empires mistook her for a puppy. She walked all the way to the lowest seat in the room, the seat of the junior, and this time, she did not sit down. She remained standing. The Eternals noticed it. A small gesture. Whispers broke out among them. The puppy was having one final spark of pride before the end. How sweet. Archon Veldar loomed high above her, his voice echoing through the massive hall. You have failed, creature, he said. You miss your meetings. You ignored the Eternals. And now you come, alone, to receive exactly what you deserve. He paused, savoring the taste of victory. But the Eternals are generous. There is still a way for your species to survive this night. The antagonist plays his final card. High tension. Surrender your technology to us, Veldar demanded. Everything you have built in your pathetic little corner. Your machines. Your weapons, if you even have any. Place it all in the hands of the Conclave, and perhaps we will allow you to continue existing. As servants. As what you were always meant to be. The entire hall waited. 14 empires, representing 14 million years of absolute power, waited for the small human to fall to her knees and beg for mercy. Pausa. And Mara Okonkwo, for the second time in her life, smiled. That exact same tiny, almost imperceptible smile. The smile that never belongs to someone who has just been defeated. She looked up at the oldest Archon, and spoke with a voice so calm, so perfectly clear, that every single species in the hall heard it as if it were whispered directly into their ear. Archon, she said, there is something you people never understood about us. Beat. We do not share our weapons. We present them. The ultimate climax. Rising, unstoppable tone. This is the moment. In that exact instant, across every single one of the 14 capital worlds of the Conclave, the sky changed. There were no explosions. There was no fire. Not a single weapon was discharged. There were only shadows. Over the eternal cities of the Velthari. Over the endless markets of the Sumar. Over the temples of the Olith, which were so ancient they had seen stars die. Over every single palace, every throne, and every symbol of power across the galaxy, A shadow measuring 90 kilometers long descended. The dreadnoughts of the Nemesis class, with the Damocles leading the vanguard. They had not arrived just tonight. They had not crossed space in a desperate, last-minute invasion. Low, lethal voice. They were already there. They had been in position for weeks. Floating in complete silence directly above the homeworlds of the Eternals, completely cloaked, waiting. While the Conclave debated how to punish the puppy already held a blade over every single one of their heads. Damocles. The name was never a metaphor. It was a warning that they were simply too arrogant to understand. The antagonist breaks down. Absolute satisfaction. Archon Velda looked up toward the display. For the first time in 14 million years, his voice of stone trembled. This is impossible, he whispered. We forbade you from leaving your moon. We forbade it. Mara, without raising her voice, replied. No. You forbade us from traveling beyond our moon. You never forbade us from building the fleet before we left. You read our words, Archon. You never learn to listen to what they hide. Firm tone, not cruel. Humanity does not sink to mindless slaughter. And then, humanity did something that none of the Eternals ever expected. They did not fire. They did not burn the cities. They did not tear down the ancient temples. They did not avenge their humiliation with blood, as any ancient empire would have done in their place. Because humanity had learned something that the Eternals forgot millions of years ago. True power does not need to destroy to prove that it exists. Mara swept her gaze across the silent hall. 14 species that now, for the very first time, looked at her with genuine terror. From this night on, the conclave continues, Mara announced. The meetings continue. The order continues. But there is one difference. She walked slowly, all the way up to the highest throne. The throne of Veldar. And she stopped right in front of him. From this night on, you are the junior members. The meetings are mandatory. And do not miss a single one. Beat. A deliberate echo of the original threat. Because there will be sanctions. The seed for the sequel. Shift to a warmer, more human tone. As a heavy silence fell over the Grand Hall, and as the 14 empires lowered their gaze for the first time in their history, there was a sudden movement. A small movement, coming from the most forgotten corner of the room. A species stood up. The Illyri. The youngest members of the conclave right after humanity. The ones who for centuries had occupied the second lowest seat in the hall. The ones who had also been called small, weak, and unworthy. Their delegate crossed the entire length of the hall. She passed in front of the silent thrones and stopped directly before Mara Okonkwo. She did not kneel out of fear. She extended her hand. A human gesture. A gesture her species had learned by watching, in complete silence, for years, observing the only civilization that had never looked down on them. We missed the meetings too, the Illyri delegate said, with something resembling a soft smile. But nobody ever listened to us. Do you listen? And Mara, for the third and final time, smiled. This time, it was not the smile of a victor. It was the smile of someone who finally finds family. Always, Mara said. That was always the difference. Final closing. Returning to the document from the beginning. A closed loop. Inside the central archive of the conclave, that document remained sealed. They titled it Error of Calculation No. 1. It was written by the Eternals, with their own hands, to remember the night 14 empires looked at a small species, and saw nothing but a puppy. We kept a copy of it too. But we gave it a completely different name. Final pause. Read the last line flat and cold. We call it The Day We Stopped Asking for Permission. Fade to black.